Yeah, we've got everybody except Dell, I believe is coming. Additions to the agenda. We've got number 5, under proud ofs. We've got numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7 under business, and number 4 under personnel. Any other additions?
Nope, that's enough.
Okay. With those additions, I entertain a motion to adopt. Okay, motion by Lou and a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. District 741 is proud of Paynesville area FFA alumni for putting on Plot Day, which was an educational opportunity for our school and community. Barb Worliger, retired teacher, donated $100 to the media center in honor of her aunt, Patricia Workman, who passed away recently. John Janata, for all the time and work he has done to put our Paynesville Dollars for Scholars program online. Mary Keeble and Jesse Rasmussen for being selected for the Leadership and Educational Excellence Award. And number 5, the Special Education Department for receiving a Certificate of Achievement from the Commissioner of Education. Is there anybody here for public comment? Not, we'll move to approve or correct the minutes from the last meeting. Okay, we have a motion by Bruce to approve. Second. And a second by Lou. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we're going to move around a little bit on the agenda tonight. In fact, I'm going to skip all the way to informational reports. We've got Max, who's got another obligation, so we're going to let him go ahead right now.
Please.
It's been a while since I've been able to be here because of the evening activities. This is actually our last home volleyball game for the
last home volleyball game for the season. So Mrs. Flora is actually watching that and will be in here when I'm done. On the agenda, I believe you have the River Lakes Co-op Hockey Agreement, which was something that was discussed previously when we decided to dissolve the co-op to add Wilmer Community Christian. So if you remember the discussion that we had or the report that I had given, it's the exact same thing that we had discussed. So now it's just, instead of dissolving, we're approving the new co-op, which is going forth at all of the schools. So then we will get a new agreement, which will have a signature from the board chair of all of the schools if it passes. Again, to dissolve it passed at all the schools, so I'm anticipating that that will happen. Just to remind the board that the policy for cancellation did change in there. Or previously it was if any school in the co-op was out, there was no practice or games. Now it's just up to the whole school, which is us for Paynesville Arena and Cold Spring for Richmond Arena. So it actually is going to fall exactly in line with our cancellation policy for everything. So there's really no change between hockey and any other sport in that regard. And then other information, obviously a busy fall. We're getting close to tournament time for our fall sports. We did have our West Central Conference Athletic Directors meeting this past, September 4th actually. I haven't been here to report since then. One of the topics which was discussed heavily had to do with Paynesville and the situation where we had lost some baseball games last spring with a conference team who chose not to make up some because of weather-related incidents. And so the conference had some discussion and put some action into place where those games are going to be enforced as far as playing them, and or conference vote would have to take place in order for conference games not to be played, which if that would have happened last spring, we would have had our games. So anyways, we ended up losing 2 baseball games last year because the team did not want to play us. So it looks like we won't have to face those circumstances anymore. The golf schedules have since been completed. Last year was the first year where we did golf double headers. Boys and girls golfed at one site, which was paired with a closed site in the conference that golfed 9 holes, and then swapped sites, so there was only 5 dates instead of 10 dates of getting out of school. The conference athletic directors chose to continue that schedule, so that's how our golf schedules will be done now. Other main changes that took place is the way the conference will award points for conference standings. And it's just weighted more fair as far as more weight for games in your division instead of more weight for games out of your division, which is the way it was. So because the conference has changed so much, last year was the first year that we experienced going through with those changes and realized some of the things that needed to be changed. I don't know if anybody has any other questions for me. I'm pretty much in the middle right now of making sure that we have all our winter sports ready to be up and running. We have a few assistant coaching positions that we will have candidates for the board probably at the next board meeting. Otherwise, that's what's going on with athletics and activities. Any questions? Any questions on the hockey co-op? Because I'm going to take off after my report, so.
It's pretty much the same as before,
It's-
somebody else added to it.
That's exactly what it is with the change of the cancellation policy. And that's it.
This is as it was before, there's no cost to the school for the hockey program. Is that correct?
To our general fund, no. To our taxpayers, yes. We do lease levy for our hockey rink, so our taxpayers do pay some money for the usage of the hockey rink. And then, of course, administrative time, that kind of stuff, supervision and then that. But as far as our general fund is concerned, there's no code for hockey that charges our budget, no.
So as far as the school district, it's a pretty cheap sport. I mean, for the
Sure,
school
it-
district to run.
We don't run it.
No, I mean to participate, I should have said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on our general fund, certainly it is, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Next. Okay, we're gonna skip around now to number 4 under business. We've got Dawn here to present information concerning our school's Minnesota State test scores.
As I did last time, I've got it set up in PowerPoint, there's lots of visuals, so you could just kind of swap places, that may work really well.
I suppose I need to speak to this section.
We have gone through our 2013 testing information. I have put together a PowerPoint with lots and lots of data. Much of it is going to be visual. I'm very visual, so when you see the graphs, it's going to be good. If you have any interest in getting the whole thing, it says on the bottom of the summary sheet, just pop me an email. I'll email you a copy of it. There's some very, very good news, and the fact is that you may have heard in the paper some of the things that are going on. It doesn't mean we're done by any means, and that's kind of where we're going. Just some general information about the state testing. If you look at this list, we did a lot of testing in 2013, and that does not include any of the practice tests. They're called OLPAs. So we have the MCA math, which is grades 3 through 8 and grade 11. Reading, when you get to the high school grades, they select a grade that's going to be the one that's tested for their proficiency to meet graduation requirements. The 2, math and reading, are set up to figure out our AYP and our MMR scores. And one of the big things is that you may have read in the paper last year that the online testing had some glitches. We did not experience many of those. None of them seemed to be anything that was really devastating. It was either at the start or the end of the testing period. One of the things that is happening is by next year, all the testing will be online. And it's one of those progression things. There are some advantages. We'll get test scores immediately for individuals. I'm not sure that we're going to get school-wide results any faster because it's one of those things that they have to work with the numbers and get everything taken care of. Some other things, AYP is annual yearly progress. This came about with No Child Left Behind. It tells us that students are meeting the achievement levels for a years of growth. And that is calculated for the whole school. The new one came about 2 years ago. It's MMR, and it's not stealing things from the medical field, although a lot of people get it confused. Why they chose this, I'm not sure. But it stands for multiple measurement rating. And it was part of our waiver for the No Child Left Behind. And instead of it just being how kids score on tests, it puts in 4 areas. How they score is still the proficiency. Our growth. Have they made adequate improvement from one year to the next? And that's not as easy as saying they went from proficient to, or from meets to exceeds. They do a ton of calculations. That's about 42 steps to figure out where a kid that scored a 552 when they were a 5th grader should be as a 6th grader. And that's probably the hardest one to explain. The achievement gap reduction is looking at our subgroups. The 2 major subgroups that we have in Paynesville to be concerned about are our special ed students and our free and reduced lunch participant students. And that is, the goal there is that all students are learning. Instead of going, all right, we've got 55 or 70% that are above here, we want everybody to be showing that improvement. So instead of having high flyers here and our average comes out really nice, we close that gap. And that's where the achievement gap is. Obviously, graduation rate is only in the high school. And they put 25 points for each of these, and we figure out a percentage score. And that's what you'll see if you look in the paper and see any of those different things that come about. Focus rating is where we ended up getting looked at, and it compares only the proficiency scores with closing the achievement gap instead of looking at all 4. The next portion here is, if we take the time to understand it, we're going to see some pretty important things. If we are a Title I school and only our elementary school is a Title I school, they will take and give everybody an MMR score, but in the classification, only Title I schools are eligible for any of the classifications. Why they did that? It's because Title I money is tied up with federal funds. And we got the waiver from the federal government, so that's how they can do it. If you're a reward school, your MMR score is in the top 15% of all Title I schools in the state. Celebration eligible says you're at the 25% directly below, and then they're given the opportunity to apply to become a celebration school. And then the Department of Education, from the information I've gotten, says that they will select about 10%. Continuous improvement, then we have a gap where schools do not have any classification. Then continuous improvement, the bottom 25% that did not already have a focus or a priority rating. And then focus schools, what was based on our focus rating, was 10% of schools that was set up on a 3-year identification, and priority schools. Our elementary school was initially designated as a focus school. And we've done very, very well all the way through, and we'll look at some of those different things. Here are some of the big achievements that our entire district should be very, very proud of. It was the 2nd year in a row that our 9th graders, all of them, reached proficiency on the 9th grade writing test. And that says a lot about how our students are prepared to write, because those questions come up and we have no idea what it's going to be. Some of them, they look at it and go, wow, the one this year was, tell us about courage. And they had to write an essay that had a beginning, middle, and end, was cohesive, that had all of the information, and explained courage and how it applies to their life. And it's an untimed test, and we had some kids that were here until about 5 o'clock in the evening. In our science test, which is not counted for AYP or MMR, but it is a test that's given, our elementary school scored almost 20% higher than the proficiency average for the state. It was 19.9%, so almost 20. All 3 schools and our district made AYP, and that is very, very important. And then the one that we've read a lot about is that the elementary school went from a focus school to a reward school. And the only way to get out of that focus status is to make the jump to the highest level, where you're definitely in for 3 years. There were only 3 schools in the state that made the same kind of leap that we did. And it's even more significant when we look at that 15%. There are 855 title schools in the state of Minnesota. So being in the top 15% is very, very good. Now, we should be proud of all of these and many other things, but those are the big ones. When we look here, we did a little comparison with our math scores across the area, and we're at each level, we're either at or above state average, and when we look at how other schools did, we're doing pretty darn well for the math scores. The reading scores came about. The reading test was a brand new test this year, and no matter how we would have looked at the information on the test specs, there was stuff on that test that we did not have the ability to know in advance what they were going to do. We focused on vocabulary and comprehension, and this test raised the bar. So inferences and comparisons and those types of things that are a little higher level learning skill and ability. And as a whole, we were above state average. Our high school did very well. Our middle school, we were down a bit, and our elementary school was there. And we're addressing those issues, and we looked into it. And a portion of it, excuse me, a portion of it, if you look at some of the other schools, example Sauk Center, they're listed as a high school and an elementary school because they don't identify themselves as a middle school. So it's based on how they're identified with the state as it comes across the way. The reading test, very different. We now are adjusting our curriculum and adjusting how we're looking at it. The average across the state from previous year was about a 20% drop in proficiency. That shows the difficulty in the test. This was just for Paynesville and looking at year to year with the math. Anything that was green in our change in proficiency means that we showed advances. With the reds, you don't want red because red means stuff. But we did very, very well. I was not able to do a similar comparison with this, with the reading, because it would not have shown the same thing. The reading test was different, so you weren't comparing apples to apples. So everything would have been red. And it's just very difficult to make that comparison. All right, Paynesville Elementary, we'll do each of the buildings really quickly. Paynesville Elementary Rewards School. We were very, very excited when we found out that information. It was released to the schools first and then released later to the paper about 2 days later, and it was just a buzz. And we were like, what does that really mean? And huge, huge response. Focus status gave us some opportunities. When we first heard about it, we kind of looked at it and went, oh, we're in the lower portion of it. But it gave us the opportunity. We kind of embraced it and looked at it and said, it gives us that probably the opportunity to do things rather than a punishment. And we did a very nice job. These are some of the areas that we concentrated on, and it started about a year ago, July, that we put in the concentrated effort into doing this. So with basically a year's worth of work, we saw great improvements. Here's where the visual part comes in. When we look at it, if we just look at the graphs, and then the bottom stuff is going to be the definite comparison. Our initial designation was based on these numbers. The graphs are a little bit different in size, but you can see our proficiency, our growth went from way down here up a tremendous amount and closing the achievement gap. So the initial designation was a combination of 2010 and 2011 scores in reading and math. So that's a huge jump that we made. We're not done though. We cannot be satisfied and stop at this point, and we're not at that point. We're looking at it and going, we've done some stuff really well. Can we keep going? Can we get reward status more than 1 year in a row? Because there are about 5 schools on the list that they get the nice little designation that says 3 years in a row. And that one is given annually. When we look at our reading and math scores, this information gives us our percentages. Ours is going to be the purple line, the green line, or the green bar is going to be the states. In the reading, we're above state average, math above state average. When we go to this one, the blue is those students that exceeded, green met, yellow partially met, and red did not meet. And it gives the exact numbers, but it's always nice to kind of look and see how we did compare to the state. And as I said, if you're interested in seeing the exact numbers, I will email you the PowerPoint and you can look at them and play. Science, which is not counted for MMR or AYP. State average is over here, and that nice little difference there. With the reward school, it's an annual designation. Unlike with the focus school, when we got that, it was a 3-year system that was going to be in place unless we reached reward status, and we did. So, very, very nice. We showed gains in growth and closing the achievement gap. That's still where we've got to focus a little bit more with our closing the gap between our special ed students and our non-special ed students, and our free and reduced students and our non-free and reduced students. There's not one thing that we can point out. It was everybody. It was the teachers, the leadership team, the administration, students, paraprofessionals, parents getting involved, and I think that's the component that we're probably going to focus on most now, is getting more parent involvement. What can we do at school, and what can you do to enhance it at home? And then, we're not satisfied with this. We want to continue. With the middle school, we look at it, we get an MMR rating, but we don't get a status given to us because it's not a title school. Our score was at 81.7%, and our graph looks pretty good there. We're not going to have the graduation rate because you only graduate when you're at high school. This is going to be right in that upper ballpark for the area schools. When we look at our scores here, reading, we're a little bit below state average, math, a little bit above. But when we look at it and look at the differences, our gap seems to be where it has students that are exceeding. We have about the same percentage that are meeting the standards, a little bit higher with those that are partially meets. So it's the top end that we weren't as high a percentage. Math scores, higher than the state average, and pretty comparable bar there. Science, we're above state average, and we don't have a lot in the exceeds category. But you don't get extra points for exceeding. It's proficient, which is meet and exceed. Here are some of the things that we're the emphasis going into this school year. We're looking into strategies to improve our reading test scores, and that's pretty much everybody in the state because of the fact that it was a new test. Looking at putting the standards into student-friendly language. If you look at how the standards are written by the state, you go, wow, how are we supposed to explain to kids what they're supposed to know? So we're taking that difficult language and making it so kids can go, that's what I'm supposed to learn in Ms. Knoll's class today. That's what I'm supposed to get out of this unit. We're working together with PLCs and across the curriculum to ensure that everybody understands that we're part of it. Just because I teach social studies doesn't mean I can't teach reading skills and I can't teach math skills. And we're all working together. And then the Common Core standards are a big thing that if you happen to watch anything with NBC in the last week, they've done their Education Nation. 45 states plus the District of Columbia have adopted the Common Core standards that says pretty much we should get the same level of preparedness in any state that we go to for college and for career readiness. And saying each state gets to add a little bit to the Common Core. So we have this baseline and you can add 15% more. And when you look at Minnesota's additions, you can definitely see what kind of interest groups were on that committee. When we look at the high school, again, not a Title I school, but this is very, very impressive when we look at this area here. Proficiency, when you look at it, here's the one thing that kind of drives you nuts about the state. Even though it looks like we're at the highest proficiency rate, it's 25 points, they never give anybody 25. They'll go 24.99 or 24.97 like we got. Our growth rate, we're in the 96th percentile all the way through graduation. We have a very fine graduation rate that comes about. And with a 98.7% in MMR, that would obviously be, if we were a Title I school, in that top 15% without a question, because you can only get 100%. Our reading and math scores showing their reading, we're higher than state average. Math, we're slightly higher than state average. And just looking at the numbers coming across. Science, we're right in the ballpark. We're a little bit lower. The one that's always very impressive, and you know, Michelle Anderson doesn't like to be noticed, but she is the one that is responsible for teaching our ninth graders in that year that they take the test, 100% 2 years in a row. The sad thing is, there's not going to be a writing test this year, because they changed part of the system, so there is no writing test this year. Some of the high school emphasis, because we're one building over here, very, very similar. We've got the PLCs across the board. Common Core standards gives a little bit more explanation of it, getting the standards student friendly. And then probably the one that's more important for the high school as we look at it is preparing for the changes that are coming in the testing systems, and that was described a couple meetings ago. And that was the state legislature that did that. This is kind of my favorite statement as far as what we need to look at. Even though our scores are very, very nice, we can't stop and we can't be satisfied. We've got to keep moving forward and look for new things. As our strategies, as we find things and they're evidence-based, if they work, we keep them. If they're not working, we're not going to throw everything out, but we're going to say, that's not working. Let's move forward and get it going. Our kids are curious. They're going, how come you're writing that stuff on the whiteboard? Now, because we're working on our I can statements. And the elementary school is probably much further ahead with I can statements, putting that student-friendly information than we are at the middle school and the high school. As far as working with Common Core, high school and middle school a little bit further ahead than the elementary, but we're all working in the same direction. So we're going to get to those new paths. We're going to work on closing the achievement gap between our non-free and reduced lunch students and our free and reduced lunch students, and our non-special ed students and our special ed students, and we're continuing on the right path. The data, it all comes from the MDE website. The graphs are just screenshots that I've taken and put together there. When I put any of the spreadsheets together, it's taken from MDE, so the information is very, very valid. And if you'd like a copy of this, my email address is there. It is also here on the bottom of the summary. The chart gives you kind of just us, state average, compared to how we did in each of the areas. And that's what I have, unless you have any other questions.
So you went to online testing.
Yes?
And so your results should have been faster. I guess a lot of these results weren't released till the state fair for whatever reason. And so how long does it take you to adjust the programs to adapt for tests this winter spring?
When we do the testing, it's a pretty easy general download. We put in a web-based program that sets it up, and then everything is web-based. We were able to get math results immediately after the students took them this spring. The science, there was really no good explanation why we couldn't get those student results right away. The reading, the reason was because it was a new test and they were norming it and trying to figure out what cut scores were going to be and everything else. As we are in the online testing this year coming up, we have been promised that we will have immediate individual results as soon as the students finish the test. As the administrator, we can go in and check. The calculations for MMR and AYP, because it has to be a comparison to everybody in the state, will take longer. And some of the mathematical formulas, you just kind of shake your head at and go, wow. I think that those statewide ones could be quicker, but I also think there's probably an agenda releasing them with the state fair.
Yeah, well, I wonder sometimes, because you took the test at the end of 1 year, you folks plan like crazy all through the summer getting ready for the next year, and if you miss something or weren't aware of it because you don't have results, then you can't react as fast. So are we November to get the kids started on the right track instead of September?
Yeah, I think that next year it's going to be much better because we'll have the individual student results basically as soon as they finish or within 24 hours. So if we're looking at what an individual student should be taking to make sure that they're progressing, we're going to be able to do that. Are we going to be able to give the summary information to the entire district or the entire school? No, but those individual ones are what's going to make it important for scheduling, making sure those kids are in the right classes.
And one thing, Bruce, because the math test you can still take 3 times, even though it's the last one that goes to the results. The teachers, actually, Don works with the Todd Stanier and Jenica Rindall to look at those results immediately, I think even within like the next day or the next week. And they can target students that they really had trouble with spatial reasoning or in those different areas. And then they adjust within that time frame right away. So the math, we've gotten that into the cycle. Reading, we have.
Reading, there will be, this year, they thought that they would have that practice test up for reading, but it is a year down the road. So we'll have that and be able to use that data as we go. One of the things that happened at the elementary school, we took that optional local purpose assessment test and identified some kids. The second time we took it and worked on an after-school program, that those kids that we found areas that they needed some work, were able to have those extra resources. When the reading comes up, we're hoping to be able to do the same thing. So those individual results coming up quicker is hugely beneficial. And everybody was, well, how come we've got our math scores, but we don't have the reading and we don't have the science yet? And that's this year we will have them. So it's progressing. And like any new system, there's gonna be a few glitches, and we figure out how to work through them and don't panic too much anymore.
And certainly one of our frustrations with science has been that the state doesn't give us much of a breakdown for science scores. That has driven me a little bit crazy for years that, I called the state up, and the reason is because it's not a big enough test to break the scores out the way they do for the math and the reading. And my response was, make the test bigger so that we can get those results back, but they have not done that.
Okay, thanks, Al. Okay, we're gonna move back to number 1 in the business, which is to review and consider approval of policy 516, District 741 medication administration policy.
I did not get any suggestions or any requests for changes from any board members. So unless there's other questions, I guess my recommendation would be to approve the policy.
Okay, motion by Bruce and second by Kellogg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and we've got Ehlers and Associates here. And we're going to review and consider approval of resolution authorizing issuance, awarding sale, prescribing the form and details, and providing for the payment of $2,715,000 general obligation school building refunding bond Series 213. Jody.
It's Jody, yes, I'm very sorry for, did I get you out of order on the agenda?
No.
Stuff in traffic in the Twin Cities, no.
No, you're good.
Oh, perfect, good. So you will have 2 items in front of you. The first one is a sale report, and the second one is the resolution that your bond attorney provided to us. And I think you may have had a draft of it, but now the information is filled in based upon the good results that we got this morning. Oh, you're right, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I love that.
Jody drives some copies for the commission.
Oh, yours? Sorry. Oh, you're fine. Okay, so the transaction that we're talking about tonight is a refunding bond sale. This is very similar to refinancing your home mortgage, a little bit more regulations involved from the state and federal government, but otherwise you can think of it similar to refinancing your home mortgage. And we did discuss this transaction at a finance committee meeting in August, And at that time, we talked about this opportunity, and then we also went through the other debt that the district has outstanding. And I'll just talk a little bit about that so that you understand the reason that this is the only transaction in front of you. The bonds that we're talking about tonight were initially issued in 2000 for the auditorium, and they've already been refunded or refinanced once. Is it not on? Do you want me to start over? No. Okay. Yes. Did someone say yes? No. So at the time that they were refinanced then, we set up a call date of February 1st of 2014. We are able to then refinance bonds and close within 90 days of that call date. So the reason that this is before you now is that we will be able to close on these bonds in November, and then we'll be within that 90-day window that the federal government requires. The other two bond issues that you have outstanding, and that's all that this district has outstanding, is one issue from 2006, which was a $440,000 capital facilities bond issue. At that time, the maturities went out just a little over 9 years. And generally, we set call dates at the time of issuance that are out 8 to 10 years. That's sort of the window of call dates, because the investors want to know that they're guaranteed a certain rate for a period of time. So when those bonds were issued, none of the maturities were callable because it was a short issue and each of the individual maturities was relatively small too. The last few maturities that you are paying are only like $55,000. The other issue that you have outstanding is a 2009 B issue, and that issue goes back to an original issue date of 1993. That was $6,820,000. That's already been refinanced twice, refunded in 2001 and in 2009. And in 2009, when that was issued, the maturities again were out less than 10 years, so none of those maturities are callable. So the transaction that you have in front of you tonight, that we took bids on this morning, that is the only issue that you have that you're able to refinance. That's all that's left for the district to take advantage of these nice low interest rates. So that's what we're talking about. If you take a look at the sale day report, then I'll just highlight what happened this morning with the bids. And I should mention too that in September, the board then, after having reviewed the opportunity in the transaction, the board did take action to move forward with the sale and also passed a resolution that night. And Betsy from Ellers was here to talk about what we were hoping to get for results. So now we have the results in front of us. You'll see that the planned amount of issuance was $2,715,000. And the purpose of this issue is to finance a current refunding of the 2015 through 2020. Those are the only callable maturities that you have on any of your bond issues. And so this relates to the $3,085,000 general obligation refunding bonds from 2004. We did go through the rating process. Moody's had gone through a surveillance process with the district over the summer. And then as part of this transaction, they require you to go through another rating process. So Superintendent Hewitt and then Joan Brogard both participated in a conference call with Moody's and did a fine job of representing your district. They got grilled again with lots of questions, and they were able to answer all the questions as part of the call. I think there were a couple follow-up questions that Joan responded to. But as a result of that conference call and all of the materials that were provided by the district, they affirmed your underlying rating, which is currently now an A2. In the resolution that you passed on September 10th at that board meeting, you also committed to participate in what's called the Minnesota Credit Enhancement Program. There's no cost to participate in the program, but in that program, then the state guarantees your debt. So should the district at some point be unable to pay for the debt, and it's never happened yet in the state, but should the district not be able to make its payments on the debt, then the state would take over and make the payment for you. Again, no cost to participate in the program, but if you do bind yourselves to that program, which you did as part of that resolution, then the bond rating also goes out with that state credit enhancement, which is a AA2, and that's a higher rating. So that's attractive to the investors and the underwriters who are looking at your bonds. You'll see that you received 6 bids, which is fantastic. There was a lot of interest, there was a lot of demand for your bonds today. It was a good day in the market. And if you take a look at the first attachment, there's 2 pages that show your bid tabulation. And you'll see that the low bidder was Vosk out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the far right-hand side, then we calculate the true interest rate related to their bid. We were, in September, when the information was presented to you, we were estimating a rate of 1.72%. So we have great news for you tonight in that the low bid came in quite a bit under that. The low bid was a 1.5895%, which is fantastic. That's nice and low. I was talking to my dad on the way out here. He said, that's hardly worth the paper that it's written on. How do you get a rate that low? So it's really exciting. It's good to see those results. And you'll see that the other bidders also gave you really attractive rates. UMB out of Kansas City, Missouri was the next lowest bidder at 1.6477. You had a bid from Baird out of Milwaukee, Piper Jaffray out of Minneapolis. And then if you turn to the second page, the final 2 bidders were BMO out of Chicago and United Bakers Bank out of Bloomington, Minnesota. And the high bid was 1.7339. So rates have gone up a little bit at the beginning of September and they started to come back down again. And so the timing really worked out well. So we're happy with those results. If you turn back then to the sale results again, there's a summary in the middle of the page. And I think we've talked about, I know we talked about with the Finance Committee and then with the board in September, the rates on your existing bonds, that 2004 issue, were at 3.85 to 4.5%. The new bonds are at 2%. And the underwriters have the option for the type of bid that they're going to give you. The winning bidder gave you a premium bid. And the $50,000 premium that they paid for you is an amount in excess of the par amount of the bonds. So we'll use that actually to pay off more of the bonds. And you'll see a little footnote at the bottom. Once we call the bonds, then the amount that you'll actually have outstanding related to this issue is now going to be $2,645,000 in principal. We were estimating that to be $2,715,000, but we'll use that premium to pay down the principal on the new bonds. So that's nice. You'll have less principal outstanding. And then you'll see that the result of the bid then, the reduction in your future debt service payments is very close to $300,000. So that's really nice. So over the next 6 years, your taxpayers will save $300,000. You can't use that savings in any other area of your budget. It has to be a direct savings that's passed on to your taxpayers and reductions in your future debt service levies. So that's a really nice property tax relief piece for them. We were planning on savings of about $286,000. So again, the low bid exceeded our expectations. The present value is $280,000 or 9.37 of the present value of the refunded debt service, and that's a really nice high percent. When we're doing some refunding bond transactions, we're required to have a rate of 3% or higher. We always like to see a rate of about 5% or higher. So this 9.37 is really fantastic. So we're happy to see that. The savings will, the taxpayers will see the savings starting right away this next year. So in calendar year 2014, the debt service levy will be reduced by about $52,000. I know you've already approved your proposed tax levy, so when the proposed tax statements go out, this reduction won't be figured in yet. We'll provide this information to the Department of Education, and when the county calculates the final tax statements, this reduction will be a part of that process. So the final levy that you approve in December then will reflect this reduction of about $52,000. So as I mentioned, we'll close on these bonds November 6th. That's within the 90-day window that we're required to meet by the federal government. And the resolution has been prepared by your bond attorney. That was that separate packet that you received. We talked about the first attachment, which was the bid tabulation, so all the results of the bids that we received today. The second attachment then provides you the schedules that are exactly the same as what we gave you in the pre-sale report in September. They're just updated for final sale results. So there's blue type at the top of each of those pages. And you'll see on that first page that the par amount of the bonds is less than we expected because of the premium bid that we received. So instead of issuing $2,715,000, we're at $2,645,000. And so everybody at that page, perfect, okay. And then if you turn to the second page, that just recaps what your existing debt service was. And again, those coupon rates in the third column show 3.85% to 4.5%. Page 3 then of that attachment shows the new debt service schedule. Coupon rates are all at 2% now, and that's what you'll be obligated to pay going forward on the $2,645,000. And then my favorite page of all is the fourth page, so the last page of that first handout that I gave to you. And on the far right-hand side, then you can see the savings of almost $300,000, just shy of $300,000 over the 6-year period. You're required to levy debt service at 1.05% of your payments. So each year, you'll save, your taxpayers will save about $52,000 on average over the next 6 years. So that's a really nice savings to pass on to them. Everything turned out better than we expected, and we're really happy with the results. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
The true interest rate compared to the coupon rate, explain that. Is the $52,000 or this amount of money that is dropping the principal equated in the true interest rate?
Yes, and the true interest rate also takes into consideration all the costs of issuance, so it's really net of all the costs related to the transaction. If you look at...
Because technically we're paying 2% on these, right?
You will, but the premium then also gets calculated into that true interest rates to bring it down. Yep. And then you'll see also the winning bidder has to provide us, if you look at the bid tab, the winning bidder has to provide us with their reoffering yields. So that's really what they expect the investors to earn. So they're paying that premium, so they offer the coupon on those maturities of 2%, but really what the investors will likely earn are what are included in those reoffering yields there.
So when you projected the 1.72, when the bids opened, that was a true interest cost.
Apples to apples compared to the 1.59 though.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
apples to apples.
Yes, yes, yep.
Okay. Any further questions? Is this a resolution here?
It is, yep.
All right, entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Michelle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll have you call the roll.
Kella? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Deb?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just have a couple things for you guys to sign, so whenever we're done,
Would you like to do now, or?
you know, whatever.
Okay, now we'll move on. Number 3 under business, review and consider approval of teacher sharing agreement for Natalie Butch, agriculture instructor with Corey Schools for the 2013-14 school year.
Lori, do you want to add anything? The agreement is pretty self-explanatory. It's the same agreement virtually that we've had in the last 2 years. It's reduced in amount this year, just because Corey is not offering as much of the classes they have in the past years. But the back part does give the financial breakdown of how much, and they'll reimburse us $6,881.07 plus mileage. We don't pay for any of the mileage.
So moved.
Deb, motion by
Yes.
Deb? Second. Second by Lou. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we completed number 4, and we'll move on to number 5, which is to review and consider approval of River Lakes Co-op hockey agreement, which Max had just
He had
summarized.
talked about, really, this is reauthorizing that agreement now.
So moved.
By Deb,
Second.
second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now I am to provide a summary of the superintendent evaluation. 2 weeks ago, we met in closed session. It was September 24th. All of the board members were present. We had significant discussion about the strengths of Mr. Hewitt. We also discussed areas where we believe that he could focus on. Overall, the evaluation was very positive, and the board approves of the job he has been doing. Everybody realizes, however, that this position requires constant improvement in learning. The board has encouraged Mr. Hewitt to continue developing his skills as a superintendent. We believe Mr. Hewitt met expectations in all categories. However, there are some particular categories that the board felt were strengths and others that he may need to focus on. The specific categories that we evaluated was: 1, does the superintendent provide leadership for the school district's educational programs, staff development programs, and curriculum development to provide the best possible learning environment for the students? We felt that this was a strength of Mr. Hewitt. 2, does the superintendent inform and advise the school board about programs, practices, and problems of the school district, and keep the school board informed of the activities operating under the school board's authority? Again, this is another strength as the surveys came back. 3, does the superintendent explain the educational needs of the school district to the school board, including recommending necessary new or revised policies and staffing changes for school board action? This was an area where like I said before, we believe he met expectations in all areas. This was neither a strength nor an area of focus. 4, does the superintendent act as a liaison between the community and the school district and respond to concerns of parents, students, citizens, and staff to increase understanding of policies and practices, and to keep them informed of and involved with school activities? Another strength that we felt. Number 5, does the superintendent oversee all financial operations of the school district and prepare, present, and recommend the various budgets to the school board? Again, although we felt he met the expectations, this is an area that we would like to see him focus on. 6, does the superintendent interpret employee proposals for the school board and recommend adjustments to employee policies and salary structures? This is a category where he did meet our expectations. 7, does the superintendent institute and update a comprehensive strategic planning process, including short-term and long-term planning, school district goals, and instructional goals? An area where we would like to see him focus on, although he did meet the expectations. Does the superintendent establish and maintain good relationships with agencies and personnel outside the school district to promote the best interest of the school district through contact with legislators, other superintendents, local governmental leaders, etc.? 9, does the superintendent maintain and improve effective school board superintendent relations by periodically reviewing and upgrading performance throughout seminars and training sessions? Met our expectations again, as did the previous category. And finally, the last category that we rated him on was: does the superintendent delegate responsibility and authority to school district employees as appropriate, define the authority and responsibilities of good management staff, and effectively evaluate them? Again, he met expectations, but it's an area where we'd like to see some focus. So, summarizing again, we did have a lot of good conversation, positive, and it was a good evaluation. Number 7, review and consider approval of resolution amending our current Section 125 flexible benefits plan.
This really is required by law. What it is saying is that you can't use flexible benefit dollars to go on to the MNsure in those areas for the purchase of health insurance. It's really, their concern is double dipping, because there are some dollars that are available to people when they go on there, so to be able to use that and then also get some reimbursements, they just don't think it's right. So, but this is a required resolution by law so that we can end our current flex plan.
Okay, motion by Bruce.
It is a
Second.
resolution too.
Second by Deb. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll have Linda call the roll.
Sharon?
Aye. Bruce?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Deb?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. On to personnel, number one, review and consider approval of maternity leave for Sarah Hadrath from approximately January 5th, 2014 through March 2nd, 2014.
So moved.
Motion by Mark, second by Bruce. Yes. Any further discussion?
We're gonna have a lot of teachers on.
I don't have an answer for this.
I don't want one. Who's disappointed?
Yeah, not taking responsibility, so.
That's good.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, review and consider approval of Audrey Ryder, food service increasing time from 3 hours a day to 4 hours a day effective October 9th.
These are only fill current openings, it's not adding any additional times to it. And the second one is filling, Audrey is moving to the more hours, and then we needed to fill her position, so.
So moved.
Motion by Deb and a second by Kella. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number three, review and consider approval to hire Katie Thompson, food service, for 3 hours per day effective October 11th, 2014.
So moved.
Must be 13, I meant.
Yeah.
Motion by Cheryl,
Second.
and second by Kella. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number four, review and consider approval of resignation of Mary Grassinger, paraprofessional, effective October 8th, 2013. Motion by Lou, second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to informational reports. We've heard from Max, so Dave.
All right. Well, first of all, we are extremely excited and fortunate to have our designation as a reward school. It really took a team effort. There was nothing individually really stuck out. It was just a matter of working together, paraprofessionals, certified teachers. And it was really nice having Don available to us to look at data, and really all we're trying to do is not look at our test scores as a school. We're looking at our test scores as individual students and adjusting our instruction. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just working hard to make sure that all students are growing and we're able to close that achievement gap. So extremely proud of staff and extremely proud of the students too, and the parents who are making a commitment to be involved in education. So our leadership team that we have going, we're meeting twice a month. Part of that was brought upon being a focus school, and so when Don talked about it really kind of being a blessing that we were a focus school and an opportunity for us, that is true because we have been able to incorporate a few different things into what we're doing. We've been able to work with the Department of Ed. We are having a reward school status this school year. We will still be able to get the services that we got from the Department of Ed. So that will be in place for this year. And they really want to use Paynesville as an example of things that can be done to improve. So it's just another great reflection on our staff and community. You mentioned the number of maternity leaves that we have. I have 5 in my building with the possibility of another one. And so I'm going to be meeting with those 5 tomorrow, and we're going to try to come up with the most efficient way to hire and go about that process. We're hoping we can use, there's a couple of them that may not overlap, and so we're hoping doctors know what they're talking about when they're doing the date. That's really about all I have. Do you have any questions? It's been nice. We've had a lot of good press in the St. Cloud and Bloomer and papers and things, so it's really been exciting for everybody.
Congratulations on that, you and your whole staff and everybody else involved. It's a great accomplishment, good turnout, so.
It was fun being on this district-wide staff development and being able to just listen in while you guys, like the leadership thing. And you could see the change growing for the last couple of years, so.
Our leadership team really, when we started, we weren't sure what our focus was, and people were quiet, and now if you come to a meeting, we're throwing ideas out there, and we're disagreeing on things, which is great, and we're not afraid to throw things out there, so it's really good. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, Lori, secondary principal.
Well, good evening. We were also excited to see our high school MMR rating at the 99%, our 81% in the high school or in the middle school. We are working on some things to look at that. It's good, it's not as good as we would like, so we're going to be working on the data with that, with our teachers and with Dawn as well. So looking for improvement there and not sitting back and saying, oh, that's good enough. We want to move forward with that. Along with that data, I did also receive some other interesting data as we move into, I know this seems like it's too early, but looking at programs to be offered next year and scheduling. And Bruce, you might find this one really interesting because I think this was a question that came up during this time last year, was where are kids at? Where are they going when they graduate? How can we look at, should we offer college courses? Should we offer CTE courses? What courses should we offer to address the needs of our students? This year, the state bought into a program from the Minnesota Office of Higher Education, and they did put out a report that shows what our graduates have been doing since 2003. So it may help us at least get an idea of what our kids are doing and what their needs are. It goes all the way up to 2012, and now they're going to continue to give us this report ongoing, so it's not a one-shot thing. Briefly looking at it, I did get it accumulated today, actually in a manageable form. It comes on several different Excel sheets, so we can put it together. But in 2003, it breaks down your total student population that goes from your graduating class that go to a public college, a private college, a 4-year program, 2-year program, in-state and out-of-state. So just looking at this point, I just looked at how many students went on into a college program, 2-year or 4-year, but just went into post-secondary ed. We started in 2003, we had 64% of our population did that. In 2012, 89% of our population did that. For the most part, we really had a jump in from 2010 to 2012. Prior to that, it slowly went up from 64% up to 70%, but then it just really jumped. The other one that I thought was interesting, and this is always good to know, and there's lots more data in here, and I can send the report out to you guys if you guys would be interested. Bruce, I think you would be very interested, and Cheryl, is the after 6 years, how many of our students that went on to college or went on to a post-secondary program graduated with an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or higher. And in 2003, we had 48% of that 64% finished a degree program. And in 2012, out of the 89% that went, or actually no, because we're not 6 years out from there, it is in, sorry about that, in 2006, which we had 73% go on into a post-secondary program. 80% of those had finished a degree type of program within 6 years. So that's pretty pretty neat to see. So I can certainly send this out, I have it on an Excel sheet, or I can send it out to you just in paper copy, but I thought it was very interesting. It's the first year we've had this report. Oh, sorry about that. Couple other things, outside of the academic performance that we have going on in Paynesville, we can be very proud of our kids for all of that. The other piece of public school, I think, and education is looking at the character of our students that we're building, for them to move on and become good citizens. Two things that have really touched my heart this week that have kind of showed we have a really good thing going in our system is, one, we received a letter from a science teacher down at YME that was on duty for supervising the game down there and happened to be assigned to the area where our kids were at. And she wrote it was their high school science teacher, a one-page letter and mailed it to us saying what a wonderful student body Paynesville had in cheering, being great school sports, and even staying behind and cleaning up the whole area in which they were at. And I just thought that was a really neat pat on the back for our students. Obviously, none of us asked them to do that. It's just what they did. So it shows that our kids have a very strong character, a very strong school spirit. The other thing that happened this week is our National Honor Society decided to stand up, and we did do it K-12 because we talked to the elementary and they worked with us, is October 7th, which was Monday, was Stomp Out Bullying across the nation. And if you look down in our lunchroom, we probably had 85% or higher students in blue shirts, which was really neat. And beyond that, I even had different just groups of kids that came up with different ideas. I don't know, did you?
I did.
If you turn around, all of a sudden we walked in our school bathrooms and there were several different sticky notes and posters with just really neat comments on them. Sometimes people are beautiful not in looks, not in what they say, just in what they are. And just all over the mirrors and
That's not the way I live.
But I just thought, how cool. And this wasn't promoted by any group. It was just a group of kids came in. And then we had, that's me taking the picture. And then we had another group, and I didn't have a picture of this, but all of a sudden these kids were passing along these, clothespins that you can close up outside with compliments on them. And they would go clothespin somebody, and then it was their job to find somebody who was doing that same thing that they could compliment back. One of the biggest things, and our staff was involved in it too, one of the number one ways to combat bullying is to create empathy and understanding for others. And I just thought that was just the neatest thing, that it just occurred. And I know from some of the teachers I went back and forth from the elementary building, they kind of had a similar turnout with the blue shirt day. So, and we can be very proud of that as well. Middle school, our rate date for the community is going to come up on October 16th, so that's coming up here shortly. So we'll have lots of our students out raking. If you're driving by, you can certainly wave.
Or grab a rake.
What? Or grab a rake, you can certainly help. I have been in and out of classrooms working with that new eye observation program. I'm learning along with the teachers. It's going to be a great asset as we move forward with staff development and teacher improvement and looking at the strategies we're using with students. I'm excited about that. One neat thing, I've been very proud of our band. Many of you have been at some of our different contests and the football games. They're really doing a great job. And thanks to Mr. Knowlton, we have actually received, and we have 80 students interested in going that are band members. We've received free tickets to see the University of Minnesota's marching band concert in Wilmer. And we have 80 students that have said they want to go, and this is on a Saturday. So I thought that was really neat. So they're going to be heading down there, it's towards the end of November. So I'm excited about that. Many of our choir students are very busy every night of the week except for Wednesday and Friday, working on the musical. So if you're not doing anything November 1st or November 2nd, November 1st is our 7 o'clock show, and November 2nd, I believe it's at 2 o'clock. Do you know that? And I think it's 2 o'clock, and I think we'll probably have tickets available again through community.
Show ticks.
Okay,
Yeah,
show ticks. Matt does that for us? Or Cheryl did it, okay. So, we're excited about that. The musical is Disco Inferno, if you remember back to John Travolta. Celebrate and Boogie Nights will be on the agenda.
It scares me that I do remember.
So I'm with you there. So, we encourage you to go, make a night of it, and we've been busy over here. I can't believe it's already midterm. So, and thanks for all your support for all the programs. Any questions that you might have for myself? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Howard. Matt, community ed?
Okay, I've got a basic report. It's this time of year where I submit our summer report to the township and city for funding. So I'll just give you a copy of that, kind of more of an FYI. Just completed a full redesign of the community ed website this week. I did the school district one this summer. I was hoping to get that one done this summer too, but didn't have time, so I just finished the community ed one. So that's a little bit different, trying to simplify things, make it easier to get to disseminate data, to get the information out there. Fitness center memberships are staying strong. We're coming off our second best year since we've been open now, hard to believe 12 years now there. And then I sent you guys a link today, our third BNC TV episode that we posted today. I've got a really great team this year, a lot of fun kids, a lot of middle schoolers, and a few high schoolers too. So, other than that, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, admin report, Bob.
Yeah, just a few things. One is that I do want to just congratulate Jesse and Mary again for winning the LEAD Award. It really speaks to their high quality and all that they've done to the district. And also for the certificate of achievement from the Commissioner of Education. It really was involved when they do an audit of our special ed. And really hats off to our special ed department. I think there was only one district in the whole state that had 0 little dings when they've gone through the audit. We only had 1. And there weren't a lot of districts that did that, and ours was a very minor one that we corrected. So really hats off to our special ed department for really doing all the things as far as due process for our students. Really met and exceeded what the requirements of the state are. So my hat's off to both those. We continue to have a great start for the school year. I just can't say enough about the staff and the students and doing what they needed to do to just cause this year to just get off to a great start. Negotiations we're continuing. We're adding another group, I think, in another week, food service, and we're just moving on. I truly do hope to have the bus contract to you for next week and finish that off for the year. So we need to go over that and it's getting typed up now and a few changes that I need to go over with the bus company and the board members on the committee before I bring that back to the full board. Have active shooter training that Paynesville is putting on. That's next week. And I know that myself and my 2 principals and I think Donnie are all going to go and attend that, so that should be really interesting. I think they had like 60-some people sign up for this training, so it should be a very interesting one. Update on the FFA well, we did agree to provide them $14,000 if needed for that well project that they paid back with the plot dollars. They just came in today, and the total that they will need from the district is $8,920, and they'll work on getting that back to us as quick as possible, so it came in less than what they thought it would be, so that's a great thing. One thing I do want to bring up, if you've noticed, our football team has had some nice success right now. I believe that unless something really unusual happens, we will have a game at the same time the next board meeting is at. So I guess I'm coming to the board right now to say, would you be willing to possibly move on that one occasion, move that board meeting maybe to 5 o'clock so that everybody would have an opportunity to get that? I know that, Deb, you have problems with that. The other option would be to leave as is, or to move to a different day. And I know that it's difficult for some board members, but I'll speak for myself. I would love to go out, and it'll be a home game. I'd love to get out there and see that if at all possible. So if the board agrees, what I will do is I will post that meeting that is being moved in as far as time. Well, that's just a suggestion on my part.
That's fine with me. In fact, if it's a home game, they'll probably make it easier because they'll want to be at the game too.
It will be a home game if there's a playoff thing. So if it's okay with the board, what I will do is I will post and move that.
Do you need a motion made to move the board meeting? Dave?
I don't think so. I think we talked about that.
I think as long as I post it and get that out, I think if the board is in agreement with it, I'll just make sure that I post it by open meeting law so that it gets out there and everybody knows where it's at. And then I guess recommissioning, we're just waiting for a startup meeting. We will be going with the old, they had the best bid, but not by a whole lot. And by the end of the month, we should have that meeting, and then we're just waiting for the heating season to start so that we can fire the boilers, and then we'll start with the recommissioning piece, and we'll bring that back to the board. And probably should have ended with my lead awards and stuff, but the enrollment still remains a concern. So we're still down. In fact, we dropped a little bit more now at this point. We gain some, we lose some. So, but it's still an absolute concern that I have. Any questions for me?
When I looked at the enrollment,
Yep.
we dropped 2 seniors.
Yeah, it's
Are
really,
we have people moving away? Are we doing exit interviews?
it's
or-
really that they're moving away. That's where the majority, or at least a big hunk of the students have been this year, is that they're just moving.
Because I noticed it's there and then it's kindergarten.
Yep. It's unusual that so many have moved out of the district to go to other places, but that's the way it appears to be, at least this year. And then we'll gain a couple, and it's just been an up and down thing. I'll update the board again at the next meeting.
We got a new kindergarten yesterday.
David wanted credit for that one.
We can request a little phone and snacks, it's so much.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a story about that.
Okay, is there anything else to come before the board tonight? Meeting's adjourned.